Okay, it is time for coterminal angles in radians. So last class we went over what radians are and how to convert from degrees to radians and radians to degrees. We're going to take it a step further now and learn about coterminal angles in radians. Now, if you remember what a coterminal angle is, remember the terminal side would have to be the same. Now, instead, we're going to be counting in radians. So this would be 0 radians, and then this is pi over 2, or 1/2 pi radians. Over here, we would have pi radians, or really 1 pi radians, right? Over here, you're going to have 3/2 pi radians. And then here it would be 2 pi radians. Now, if you're not as good with fractions and you're better with decimals, we're going to look at that as well because this is going to be somewhat important. Okay, so I have 0 radians here. I have 0.5 pi radians here. I have 1 pi, 1.5 pi, and 2 pi radians. So if you like decimals better than fractions, you can look at it like that. Now, the reason that we can't convert 2 degrees first, we actually could, but then we would have to convert them back, because if you jump down and look in this at the directions, it says to find the angle in radians. So if we convert it to degrees, we'd be able to find out what quadrant it's in. But if we're looking for a coterminal angle in radians, we're going to have to then convert those degrees, coterminal angles in degrees, back into radians. So the same way we add and subtract 360 degrees to find coterminal angles, instead, we're going to add and subtract 2 pi radians to find coterminal angles, because 360 degrees is equal to 2 pi radians. Okay, so here it says to draw a rotation diagram for each of the following radian angles, which are expressed in terms of pi, and then determine the closest positive and negative coterminal angle. So here we have 1/3. Now, it does say to draw a rotational diagram, so we're going to need to do that. You won't be doing that on the Google Forms because we're not drawing rotational diagrams, but you will need to find the coterminal angles. So here we're going to start, of course, with our initial side, and we have 0 pi radians, and then 0.5 pi radians, or 1/2 pi. Well, if you're good with fractions, you know that 1/3 is in between 0 and 0.5, right? So this is 1/3 pi over here. And we want a coterminal angle going in this direction, and then one also that's negative, and then also one that goes all the way around and wraps around and adds to it. So again, we're going to be subtracting and adding 2 pi. So this is our rotational diagram here. This is our angle, which is 1/3 pi. Okay, now, if you're not sure of what quadrant that would go into, you would just have to convert 1/3 to 0.333. 0.333 is in between 0 and 0.5, so that it would be in the first quadrant. All right, so really what it boils down to is finding the coterminal angles. So I want to take my 1/3 pi and I want to add 2 pi, and I also want to subtract 2 pi. We don't really care about the pi's here. It's like a variable almost in this particular problem, because we're keeping the pi in there. So this would be the same as 1/3 x plus 2x. So in your calculator, you would go ahead and just add 1/3 plus 2, and it would be better if you used your fraction bar, because it would keep it in fraction mode. So let's go ahead and go into your fraction, and you would have 1/3 and then plus 2. And you would also do 1/3 minus 2. And this simplifies the fractions for you also. So you can see that we have 7/3 and -5/3, and don't forget to add the pi to it. Okay, so we have 7/3 pi and -5/3 pi. Those are our coterminal angles. Okay, so now we go ahead and do the 7/4 pi. Now, if we're just looking for the coterminal angles and it's not asking us to draw a rotational diagram, you can just have the 7/4 pi and add 2 pi and subtract 2 pi. And remember, that would just be 7/4 plus 2, which would be 15/4 pi. And this is going to be 7/4 minus 2, which is going to give us a -1/4 pi. And those are our coterminal angles. Now, since it did ask us to draw a rotational diagram, I'm going to go ahead and convert 7/4. So 7 divided by 4 is 1.75. So that is equivalent to 1.75 pi. So I go around and I count by half pies. This is 0 pi. This is 1/2 pi. This is 1 pi. And this is 1.5 pi. And then this is 2 pi. So you could see that 1.75 is between 1.5 and 2. Okay, so if I was going to draw my rotational diagram for that, it would go around and it would terminate in the 4th quadrant. Now, if you're good with fractions, you can say, well, 7/4 is just about 8/4, and 8/4 is equal to 2. So it would be in that 4th quadrant. All right, one more we're going to do now. Okay, we have 5/6 pi plus 2 pi and 5/6 pi minus 2 pi. When I go ahead and add those together, I get 17/6 pi, and I get -7/6 pi. Okay, and because I have a positive and a negative, I'm done with picking out my coterminal angles. Now again, 5/6 is almost 6/6, which would be 1 pi, right? 6/6 is 1. So I know that my angle is going to end, oops, picked the wrong thing there, is going to end in, start here, and then it would go around and it would end almost at 1. So it would be in the 2nd quadrant. So that's what my diagram would look like. But again, if you're not good with fractions, if you do 5 divided by 6, that would be 0.83, repeating, pi. And 0.83 is between 0.5 and 1. So again, you'd be able to draw that rotational diagram. All right, go ahead and do some practice. Good luck.